Alright, this is going to be a video on Festering Ground. I chose this map because I know a lot of people struggle on it, and it's a map a lot of people play, so it's probably the map I should have actually started with, but we are here now. The first thing I'm going to do in this video is actually suggest a comp, perhaps, for this map. It should work on any difficulty, and I don't think it's the absolute best comp for this map, but it's definitely like the most straightforward, especially on the lower difficulties, like plus and normal ons, um, base ons. So I would recommend Flail Zealot, or even if it gets nerfed, still Flail Zealot. Holy Great Hammer Zealot works too, Great Sword Zealot, any of those are fine. And then with that, Ironbreaker would be your second pick. You know, Trollhammer is going to obviously be best, but you could run Drake Gun if you really wanted to. It's fun. And then you're going to want Waystalker or a Bolt Battle Wizard. I would recommend Waystalker. It's more straightforward, but you could run Bolt. And then for your last pick, Grail Knight. And basically, for the event, the Zealot actually does the event. Even if you bring the Battle Wizard, you would have the Zealot do the event. For those who don't know, on this map, Zealot is super good at doing the event because when you're ulted, you phase through enemies. So if you have... I don't have Creature Spawner enabled. That is awkward. You have enemies, you can just like phase through it while you're ulted. Didn't demonstrate that very well because those were file trolls and they were knocking me around, but you can simply dodge through enemies as this guy. And so for getting those buboes on the end event, you run either Feel Nothing or this. You don't really need that with Flail. This is fine. You can run this. You don't really need to. Either way, depending on how good you are at doing the event, this is going to make it the easiest for you. You basically permanently have your ult. You can run cooldown reduction on your charm, which is actually pretty good if you run this on Zealot. You permanently have ult, or it almost feels like you permanently ult, and you just phase through everything. And because you're not the special sniper on the team, I would recommend running these, or Griffin Foots, and you just go through the event. Anytime there's a special, you know, pull these out, and you have your passive. So you should be able to pretty much guarantee you do the buboes with 1 life, because you go in, if there's some specials, you just live while your passive gets procced, kill them, and then you'll have an ult back because you took so much damage. You can phase through everything, kind of just blow up all the buboes. Very easy. Then, of course, Ironbreaker can just hold everything for you. Grail Knight, super good class, as we all know. And when you look at the team, like for the rest of the map, you basically just walk through everything. You know, Ironbreaker can taunt, and then you have a flail, whatever you're running on GK, hopefully a great sword, or a one-handed sword, and everything dies between these two, and Ironbreaker holding everything. This isn't so important as long as they're killing all the specials. So for the first spot, I know a lot of people will end up struggling here. I don't recommend ever fighting like in this area. Just get through as soon as you can. You can kind of abuse this reroute, but generally if you're fighting back here, you're probably not going to win that run. So I would recommend staying in this area. Doesn't matter too much which side you're on. This side really isn't that bad. It kind of blocks some sight lines, but usually people go here. It really doesn't matter in the end. Long story short, just make sure your team is staying together. Sometimes you get Skaven in this area, which is what people usually will struggle with because Skaven will come from a lot of different directions. Will climb up here and come from back there. And so in that case, you have 2 options. I'm going to give you the most straightforward way to deal with Skaven. It's going to be to fight with your team, stay with them along the wall, and as soon as you can, simply drop. And the easiest option is actually not do what most people do. The most straightforward option is to keep running all the way to here, and then this will be the spot you fight. Because from here, you pretty much only get enemies from that direction. in that direction. Much more manageable. It's a very slot friendly location for any slot enjoyers in this game. There's a lot of spots to stand, and you basically just slide along the wall. If you get surrounded and you feel like you're really surrounded, all you do is hold block. You can jump, you can slide along these things when you jump, and then you can move around all the enemies until they're all on one side. You can do the same in this direction. Oh no, we're stuck. Let's all slide together as a team. Cool, everything's facing this way now. And we're good. Or you can just stay here and fight. Again, with that comp I mentioned, it's very good at doing that. Ironbreaker just taunts. Then your Zealot and GK basically kill everything. Your other option is to stay here. If you fight here, don't stand... It's a little confusing. If you stand too far back here, Skaven will attack you. But Skaven will show up no matter what you do. But if you stand back here, you like increase the amount they do. And so if anyone stands back here, it should only be your backliner. Like if you're a frontliner, especially in the comp I mentioned, like no one should feel the need to go back there. And if you fight here, I find the best spot for your frontline is to either stand here or here. And so I would have like the GK here, the Zealot here, or you can flip that, and then the Ironbreaker would just stand in the open, basically. And one fights on this wall, one fights here, do a bunch of DPS. Also, one could stand here. You can slide the wall, fight them on the drop down, and basically, the person here might have to help your backliner occasionally kill this stuff, and with that, this stuff will be dead, and everything else would just be in this direction. If it's Chaos, you can do the same thing I just mentioned. Those are all options. This spot on Chaos is probably the easiest because they won't come behind you if they're Chaos. So you just stand here. If it's Chaos, though, ideally, it depends on what the first wave does. If the wave starts behind you, you can just stand as your whole team right here, and then when the wave shows up, just all drop, or drop right before they show up, and then kill them on the drop down, and then do what I mentioned. Or, if the first wave comes this way, well then your team stands here, kill them on the climb up. If the next wave comes again, you can stay here. If it comes from behind, you can drop. Otherwise, you just have to stay out here. Kind of have no other advice than, you know, just don't die. If you're going to stay out here, you have a lot of walls you can slide against. Basically, just don't come off the wall, and you can always move. You can always dodge, crouch if you get stuck. Crouching is very important if you're stuck, or jumping sometimes. And those are the main ways of dealing with that. This next spot here, I don't think this spot is terrible, especially for this comp. The main problem with it is gas can be very difficult to deal with, although ideally you'll just slide around. If you do find yourself unfortunate enough to be holding here, the backliner should be standing right here on this bucket. Not on the crate, not on the crate, on the bucket, or on this bucket. One of these spots. This is the powerful spot. You can see all of that shit. Your frontliners should stand here. Maybe one here, here, here. Zealot should be on the outside in this case, or anyone with a ranged weapon should be on the outside in case there's gas. And then they can deal with that. So you wouldn't want the Zealot here and the GK here, because then no one can shoot the gas that peaks first. This spot, okay, there's a couple things I'm going to mention. I was going to put this in a video, and I'll probably do a separate video on this, but it's the way the enemy aggro system works. A lot of people don't understand it and get confused why they get attacked. The way the aggression system works is it's probability-based, but the main input to that function, as far as I understand it, is your proximity to the enemy and the number of slots you have available. And so if you're... And the proximity is determined in a straight line from the enemy to you. So if Skaven are going this way, who's the closest person to them? Remember, they see through walls. It's a computer. It's not an actual Skaven. It's a piece of code on your computer. So who do they see first? This person is seen first. So if you're like holding here or here as a frontliner, the reason the monks run through here and attack your backline is because they are the closest person to it. So if you're backlining, you really, I would advise standing here It's a much better spot, and it'll stop you from getting killed. Yeah, that's just a PSA. This spot also, I think you can get up there. This spot is um, turn illegal, and you have one slot here, I think. Not certain, but I'm pretty sure you have one slot here. Hello, Skaven? Yeah, like it's a pretty powerful spot. Maybe you have. Do you have two? How many do you have? Man, these motherfuckers do not want to attack me either fucking way. This spot is like, yeah, you have two slots. That one back there is not doing anything. Like, standing here is so much fucking better than wherever other people stand. You can kill the specials a lot easier. And again, if you're holding this, the person standing here, there should be one person here. They should be with a ranged weapon. So like Zealot should be here, for instance. GK could be here. Ironbreaker should just be fucking standing right in the motherfucking open, not in the corner back here. That's where DPS should be. DPS starts here and ends in the corner. The other DPS could like start here, end here, or here. Ironbreaker should never try to back up from here. Don't stand like all the way over here, then you'll get hooked. Like this is a good spot for the Ironbreaker, so you don't get immediately hooked. This room, you have a couple options. I feel like people die whenever I say hold here, even though I think this is a pretty good spot. The way you want to hold in this room, from what I found, is right here is going to be the easiest way. Just trust. If you're the backliner, just stand here. Just stand right here. Right here. Right here. You have like 1 or 2 slots. And also, you are furthest away from anything. How does the aggression system work? If you're on that corner and enemies go through here, this is the last person who's going to get targeted by anything. Any spawn location, this is the least preferential person to be targeted. And so if you're on backline in this corner, you are the safest person on the team. Even if it feels a little scary because overheads are like kind of in your direction, they're not going to hit you unless your team's trolling you and back dodging and holding close, which they shouldn't be. So again, like the GK should be probably about here is going to be a good spot for them, not all the way on the barrel. Someone with the ranged weapon here, IB in the middle. And this person needs to be aware of those blights. The backliner might not always be able to get them. So this person is going to be on blight duty. And if you just hold back here, it's super safe. When you get Skaven and stuff spawning this way, the reason people die is because you just see people get scared, and then like for some reason you'll see teams and there's just like one person over here, like, yo guys, I'm out here, and then 3 people over there, and then this person's just dead. Just stay together. That's all you have to do. Just stay in this area and don't die. If you want to kite, you can go together though. Stay with your team, hold block, get to a wall, any wall, it doesn't matter which one. Slide along the wall, jump over things, and you'll be fine. Just don't stand here. I see so many backliners stand here, and I don't know why they do it. They're just trying to die. If you're GK and you have your Exe out, don't come over here. There might be a Blightstormer. There's a Blightstormer. The route I recommend is going back here. It's usually lightest. You can jump over all of this stuff and basically just get the fuck out of here, because this spot's no longer viable at that point. Make sure to check the items under here. Lamp oil is really good. This next area, I know there's a lot of people that suffer with this trigger. Pull every ambient you can. Hold the spot I recommend. Holding out here is actually not that bad. The Taiwanese teams do it wonderfully. It's a joy to watch them hold out here. The comp I recommended is definitely capable of doing it. Basically, slot abuse, like this spot, and then you just kind of go along the wall as your team, and you move either this way or this way, and you choose the direction you move based on like where the fewest amount of enemies are. So if most of the elites are this way, move into the left, get around everything, and then you have one direction. Most of the elites are on this side, you move a little bit here, then start fighting here. You can also jump onto this, by the way. Very powerful. I don't remember exactly how the enemy pathing works, but I'm pretty sure they have to go like all the way around when you get up here. Or no, there's a climb up. Yeah, it's a climb up. So you can do a lot of things like jumping down, fighting the wave down here. Oh, let's go up as a team. Everything has to climb. Ironbreaker taunts, we kill everything. So either way you want to do it, if you want to figure out how to hold out here and practice that as a team, or hold all the way back there. Either way, the team has pretty good boss damage. Definitely doesn't have perfect boss damage. If it's a tournament and you learn how to hold back there, might be worth farming 4 potions before going. So you have plenty of potions to kill the monster, or holding out here and getting a better timing. Okay, this area, 2 things. If you're not trying to hit a trigger, don't come up here. I don't remember where the trigger is exactly, but just don't come up here unless you want to spawn a monster. This spot. Enemies drop from here. Do not stand across this line. I don't know why I see people doing that, but just don't. Don't stand right here. Hook rats can get you maybe from here. So hook gets you, and about 0.75 seconds later, Gutter Monkey has taken you off the server, and you're uninstalling. Stand behind here is what I would say, and you won't have that happen to you as often. This spot is a corner, which means you're going to be most worried about gas and blights. So it's really important to keep your backliner safe. I would recommend the backliner stand all the way back here. You realize, like, once you get back here, this area is actually pretty big. Like, if your backliner's back here or here, again, the aggro priority system, if you're further away, less enemies are going to aggro on you. If you're holding, like, right behind your frontliners and then backing up, you're going to drag things through them. You're going to have stuff on you. Just start all the way back here. Never go further forward. If you're a frontliner, try to never back up from here, especially the Ironbreaker. And if your backliner's safe, the gas and blights won't be a problem. And if you're not dying to gas or blights, you're dying to a skill issue. And if you're in a low slot location, that is least likely to happen. So, pretty good spot over there. This area is interesting because jumping around here is fun, and it's a climb up. So, there's so many ways to deal with this. Chaos is similar to the first area. Chaos waves. Basically, look where the chaos wave's coming from, and then do what's advantageous, like drop down and fight them as they drop, stay here and kill them as they climb. Pretty straightforward. If there's 2 chaos waves, you only want to do an action, as in drop, in this case, when they're together. And so, say you get 2 chaos waves, right? Which one's closer? Say this one's closer. Okay. Then you're going to want to go out and probably just fight the wave. Fight into the wave, like fight along the side. And then you can just fight in this open area for the second wave and you'll probably just be fine. Your other option is to kind of... I guess your default option would be just back all the way up to that spot if you're not feeling comfortable. But this, like, open area is what I'm trying to say. For Chaos Waves, you can not do, like, spots people, like, haven't showed you before. Like, you can just stand in the open versus Chaos Waves, especially when there's a double wave. Like, just running into the closer wave is usually going to be your best option, even if you're just, like, standing in the open, because it's just one Chaos Wave. You should be able to deal with that. And by running into it aggressively, by the time the second wave shows up, like, this shit should just be dead. And then it's like, it's just one more Chaos Wave. And then if the third one spawns, I mean, you should kill it in time. And as long as you do that, you're not fighting 2 waves at once. As long as you're not fighting 2 waves at once, you should be fine. Your other option is to just, like, try to hold block, fight here as long as you can, and then as this wave starts climbing, just drop, but you might get stuck doing that. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Now, if this wave is the closer one, then you can do that, where you just hold the drop down, fight them. When this behind wave shows up, then you can drop. So those are kind of your options for Chaos. that I would recommend. For Skaven, you don't want to be up there. It's not going to go great. It's okay if you know how to kite around in a loop, but dropping, and then if you haven't pulled ambience, this is where things are going to get a little interesting. You have to hold in this area. Obviously, a lot of people struggle doing that. I think I mentioned this on my um, Screaming Bell video, but I'll mention it again here. It's how you kite in this game. It's how you deal with ambush. It's how you deal with double waves. You get everything to be in the same direction. You get it linearized to a straight line where your team is at the head of it or behind it, however you want to think about it. Basically, your team just has to start together along a wall that you can move through where you won't get stuck. So your team starts together, Skavens all around you, and then you simply see where is the shortest path to get to either the head or the tail of where the enemies are. Obviously, if you're standing here, you can't go that way. So it's going to be this way, and you just slide along. Ironbreaker makes this very easy, and eventually you kind of get around all the enemies. And then you're like in a spot like this, maybe there's a couple enemies here. Your frontliners can kind of deal with those pretty quickly, like fight into them, and then all of a sudden, once you've killed these stuff, well, all the enemies are in that direction. Your backliner can be very safe now, and everything's in the same direction. And you can do that in any area in the game. Any area in the game, no matter how small, you can do that. In the open, you can do that. You can stay out here. That's how you would like fight Skaven. You would see where it's lighter. You stay as a team, and then all of a sudden, everything's in the same direction. Same principle applies in this enclosed area. Find where the enemies are kind of, the density is the lowest, and then you go into that, and then your frontliners like cleave open a section, and you basically make it so that your backliners in a corner, your frontliners don't have overheads from 3 sides, and you should be able to deal with anything at that point. Obviously, in this case, Blightstormers are going to be an issue there, so once you like are fighting here, it's important for your backliner to get into this area so they can deal with that stuff. The same thing works from like starting from this side, right? Say you start here, you get ambushed, you can slowly inch along this way, for instance, and then eventually everything will be in this direction. You can loop around to here once things stop dropping, and everything's in the same direction. Other option, if you pulled ambience, or if you just want to, you can fight here. I like this spot a lot. Only some enemies come behind this way, unless like a whole wave comes that way. So basically, your backliner's here, maybe the Zealot or GK. I would say the GK should help out occasionally in the back. And then, I mean, you have an Ironbreaker, a low slot area, and a Zealot. They should be able to kill everything on their own. And you just do it that way. The pathing over here is really weird. Usually enemies will go this way around, so they won't like even all climb up here. And so it makes it really easy for a GK and the back line to just kill everything here, and then rotate over and help out on this side. A couple other things to mention. This is a trigger right here. This spot's fine for Chaos only for Chaos. Skaven spawns behind here. Some spots work for Skavens, some spots do not. This is a spot that absolutely does not work for Skaven. Simply do not stand here. Just don't stand here if it's Skaven. If you get stuck in this area, the same principle applies that I've explained earlier. It's how you fight in like all of these areas where there's not just a hold spot everyone knows about. It's the same way you fight every single area in this game that doesn't have a corner you can just stand in. You look, you stay with your whole team, you start on a wall that you won't get stuck on, you can dodge through pretty easily, jump, crouch if you get stuck, and then you see where the enemy density is lowest, and then you walk into the lower density, so you follow the gradient as it were, and eventually everything's in one direction. Your front line kills whatever elites were on the side, and everything's in the same direction. Your backline's safe. If your backline's safe, the game should be pretty easy. Opposite way works if you're fighting on the ramp. So if you don't want to hold here, like I mentioned, you could hold in that corner for Chaos, here for Skaven, doing what I'm saying. Or you always do have the option of just running around in a circle down here. If you like kiting, you have someone who likes kiting, your team's good at staying together, you can just always run around. That always works. Next spot is going to be over here. I don't remember, honestly, if Skaven drops behind you. Yeah, I think it does. The same spot has the same issue. Skaven falls behind you, so if it's Chaos, you can just stand here. It's a really big pocket. Like, you should never have an issue with gas. Like, like 5 gas rats is what it would take. Just kill one of them, please, and it'll be fine. This ramp works the exact same way as the other ramp. Literally no difference, except I guess you could do something where your team backs here and then drops. Actually, yeah, that is something I would point out. It's really easy to get the horde linear. If, like, say you're fighting here, there's a bunch of shit this way, there's a bunch of stuff that way. Just go on to this, and then, like, drop, and either loop around back to the ramp, or end up fighting through here, and guess what? Everything's gonna be, like, ants running in a line, everything in the exact same direction, and then you're here, and nothing's behind you. So that's, like, one way you can deal with it, or you can slide up and down, like I mentioned. This area, don't be in here. Just don't. If you're in here and you die, it's your fault, because now you know. When you loot this area... Oh yeah, that's the first time I've said loot this whole game, because, not a whole lot up until this point, right? I would say send 2 people up here, and make sure to check this corner right there. Cool, I was able to tag it early. Send 1 person over here. That jump from down there, I don't know. I don't know how to do that shit. Yeah, just send 2 people, and you'll be fine. If the wave spawns, you know, this is where I can't tell you exactly what to do, but if you have any uncertainty, like literally any doubt in your mind, like, yo, can I get those items? Just go to the hold spot, is my advice. If you have any doubts about your ability to get the items and survive, and you go for them, you're throwing, just, like, go into the hold spot. Skaven spawns from here, so if it's Skaven, you need to hold behind here. If it's Chaos, you should hold behind here, because hook rats. So back here is always going to be safest. So there's literally never any reason to stand in front of here. So what I'm saying is, if you ever get overheaded by an SV from here, it's your fault, because even if you think it's Chaos, you should be behind this line. Skaven can spawn back there. Have one of your frontliners ready to deal with that. Probably the GK in the comp I mentioned. And you'll be fine. If you get pushed back, just go all the way back if you have to. Nothing wrong with holding back here. I once fought a bile troll back there after half my team died, and I think I died. But it's a pretty good spot in general. Oh yeah, about that, monsters, I haven't talked about triggers too much, because just that first trigger I mentioned, patrols in this area, pretty easy to avoid. Monsters in this area, you know, I explained the principles of kiting. When there's a monster, you're basically going to have 3 people doing one of the kites I mentioned. And the last person has priority. What I mean by that is the person with the monster shouldn't have to consider where the team is in terms of how they move. Like, the team needs to accommodate the person kiting the monster. So if the person with the monster is like, yeah, I'm going to go this direction because I feel like I need to, the team who's here needs to get the fuck out of the way, basically, is how that works. So if you're holding the monster, you shouldn't be thinking about anything other than staying alive, no matter, like, which direction you're going in. And everyone else on your team should be just holding and then making sure they're getting out of your way by sliding around the walls, coming up here. This is a really easy path I'm giving you some advice on. And then, like, Ironbreaker taunts. The person with the monster has nothing on them. Every single enemy's over here. If the Ironbreaker taunts, like, there, you just, like, do what I said. Come up here. Big taunt. Literally the whole fucking map gets taunted. The person killing the monster's alone now. And then you just kill the whole wave here, and, yeah, it should be a pretty easy trigger. Once you figure it out. Over here, same thing applied. Again, a lot of the things in this game are the same. Like, this is another drop down. If it's Chaos, you just go back and watch that other part I said. Sometimes you want to drop, sometimes you stay here, run around. Literally everything I mentioned applies. For this spot, make sure you drop here so you can check this item. You can technically jump up from here, but it's a really stupid jump. I don't like doing it. I miss it like half the times I try. So just drop to here to check that item. Holding here is not bad. I will mention, I think it's very underrated. I would actually recommend, I just told people to go back and just watch the previous section for this area, but for this like multifaceted drop down area where there's just so many different levels, like just drop and stay on the highest level you can. And if enemies start dropping on you, just drop. Like, just drop to the next safest level. And chances are, if you have to drop again, you do. But chances are you're going to get to a point where you're safe and you're able to kill people while they're climbing. You get overwhelmed, just drop again. Practice that as a team. Everyone just has to stand near the same ledge. For some general advice, I would recommend not fighting here. This spot is really bad to fight. Usually people will get stuck. This spot, like, it's kind of cool, but then you get hit with a gas rat, and then it's not cool anymore. So I would recommend, like, fighting on this level here, up top, this level, and here. It usually ends up being pretty good, and people don't usually get stuck. This area for holding, Skaven can spawn behind. Again, same thing applies as I mentioned. GK should be helping out back there. These two should be fine. This is actually, I mentioned you could basically like hide around in any area in the game. This gets to the point where it's so narrow and difficult, like you can get stuck is the main issue. It's not really how narrow it is, it's just you can get stuck. So it makes it pretty hard to linearize. The thing is, I mean, this area is just linear by how narrow it is, and so it kind of solves that problem for you. So Ironbreaker just has to not back up, basically. The moment Ironbreaker backs up, your team's probably screwed. Especially if you're like running a Zealot, because Zealot and Ironbreaker should just never have to back up, really. And as long as those players are capable of doing that, you will never die in this area, pretty much. And GK can help the backliner back there. Other things to remember is, you know, don't peek the Blight unless you have your bracer pistols with ammo or something. Just don't peek this corner. I would recommend fighting about here is a good spot. Hook rats can't really get you over here if you're standing from here, and so hooks have to walk all the way around. Your backliner from here can see everything then. Your backliner's generally pretty safe. And that's how I'd recommend doing that. Only back up if you absolutely have to. This area for triggers, I mean just ledge. Pull every ambient first. If there's a patrol, you might have to pull it. Everything I mentioned earlier applies. If everything goes really bad, well then you just have to hold that corner with the patrol and fight them. Generally starting fighting the patrol out here though would be a good idea if you have to pull it. If you get like ambushed in kind of a no man's land, as I would describe it, like say you get ambushed over here and you don't have time to just go back or forward, just group up as a team. That's what you want to do when you start getting surrounded. You want to start by simply grouping. Because when the enemies spawn, they're very spread out. And so what you want to do in order to deal with situations when you get ambushed in really bad areas is you just want to wait. Like literally just group up and hold block for 10 seconds would probably solve 90% of the issues most people have. If your whole team just stands together somewhere, holds block, after about like 10 seconds, or just like trying to survive in the corner, the enemies are going to be pretty grouped up. Like this wave might only be up to about here in distance. This wave might only be like here. And at that point, you just decide which direction do you want to go. In this case, it's probably most straightforward to back up. Oh, look at that. We have a convenient way to jump around here. That's cool. And then your whole team's over here. Dodge once, twice, and literally the whole wave is on this side. It's like you weren't even surrounded. And that's how you deal with that. If you want to pace, you can. You know. That's on a case-by-case basis if you're actually going to be able to do that. This spot. Don't stand here. Stand, like, back here. I would say stand back here. Because hook rats, if they drop and, like, insta-hook you... Like, hook rats, when they climb down or climb up, can be stupid sometimes. So just don't be near the drop-down. is my best advice. Just simply do not be near the drop down. Know it. So frontline here, Ironbreaker should try to avoid backing up. Backliner, I mean, this is... I would say, like, here is where I'd want to be. Um, you can get knocked off the map by assassins. Also, no one should ever be jumping in this entire area. Jumping in general is pretty bad in this game. I do it because it's funny, and I just like hitting my jump button. But, like, in this whole area, if you're jumping for any reason other than getting over geometry, you're probably throwing, because if someone gets assassined, you're going to get knocked off the map. Same thing over here if you're a backliner. Just don't jump. Also, if you're a frontliner, don't jump. This area, same thing applies as earlier. If you get ambushed, hold block, find a direction to go, do it as your team, or pace. Same thing applies in the cave. If you get ambushed, just hold block. Eventually, you can slide along a wall. In caves like this, jumping is actually very useful. There's nothing to knock you off the map. And see what I just did? This lets you get around enemies. Like, when you're in an area, your flow sheet should be, if I can't dodge to get by and you need to get by, you can jump or crouch. And jumping in a cave is usually pretty good because you can just like clip yourself into the wall and get around everything. Or crouch, sometimes it'll let you dodge past things that you couldn't otherwise. And yeah, like if you're in here as your team, like don't panic. Just be like, look around and go, less enemies this way, let's go left. Less enemies that way, let's go right. Let's all jump along the wall, and eventually you'll be safe. And everything's in one direction. This area, holding... sometimes the construction's a bit different. You either hold here, backliner gets everything. GK focuses on one side, Ivy and Zealots get the heavier side. Or you hold in, like, the triple tunnel. Basically... every principle I've mentioned applies. If you get gassed, you need to move, figure it out, pick a side, clip yourself into the wall, get over however you can. I promise you, you can always get around in an area like this with these walls, and then go back when it's open, or just slide along the wall and give up the spot. Here, I don't think fighting in here is a good idea. You know, there's a lot of stuff, things can spawn. This area, things don't... I know it's been posed a lot, like always ask the question, do things spawn back here? And I don't actually know if Skaven comes out of this hole. I don't think they actually do. Nothing comes from back here though. So like, backliner should probably be here, because you can see if things spawn here, because I don't actually remember if they do. If they do, well, your GK can help you out. Everyone else just holds here. Narrow area. Everything mentioned previously applies. If you really have to escape, get out of here however you can. Otherwise, just hold the corner. Ironbreaker should never back up. That's another thing. Ironbreaker doesn't back up, your team doesn't die. That's pretty good. Get ambushed in this area. I'm not going to repeat myself again. The cave area, you can just deal with it. Or the drop-down section I already talked about. Chaos, you might be able to stay. Skaven, do not stay. Fighting back here is not very bad. I don't remember if this is a good spot for your backliner. This is a good spot, though, for your backliner. If you want to, like, hold in this corner. If you want to try, like, as a team, you feel like you struggle in this area, try holding back here. Put your backliner here. Put your frontliners there. And you'll be surprised how easy it is to hold there. I don't think anything comes from... I'm pretty sure nothing comes from behind. I don't think I'm misremembering that. This area, again, what I've mentioned, I would say your starting location, though, should be here. Right here should be your starting location. For Chaos, this is very important. The first wave you see, often on this map, you don't know if there's a double wave, right? Because, like, where'd the Chaos wave spawn? Like, down there? Like, how are you going to see it if you're back here? So, have people looking around. You know, have people looking around, like one person here. You know, you don't have a ranged weapon. I guess everyone can peek, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you have a ranged weapon. But one person with a ranged weapon back here, another person here. See where the wave spawns, and if it's Chaos, just run into that wave. Run straight fucking into it. The problem with double waves is when they get to you and you fight them both at the same time, but if you see a chaos wave, just take the initiative, run straight into it, run into it unless you're pulling a trigger or you're going into a really bad line of sight area. This whole area, I mean, you're gonna get stuck over there anyways, might as well take the line of sight, honestly, at this point. Just run straight into the first chaos wave you see and fucking kill it. And then you won't have to deal with a double wave. If you see another chaos wave after that one, run straight into it, and that's a good way to avoid having to deal with the double wave problem. If you do get double waved, well, what I said earlier works. Hold block, figure it out, get out of their way, and eventually they'll only be in one direction. Same thing as the cave applies here. I think holding this spot right here is pretty good. Line of sight kind of sucks. The slots here aren't as favorable as in the cave, which is why it can feel so horrible holding here. If you, like, die here and you're doing what I tell you to do, I would say just hold back there and then just fucking pace. Just say, fuck this, we can't hold here. It's too hard. Like, fair enough. This spot is absolutely horrible. And just drop right fucking here. Just drop right there. Look at that, 0 fall damage taken. Tech unlocked, by the way. And hold here. This spot is very good because this is like everything I mentioned, but on absolute steroids because of this right there. If you fight in this area, like, oh man, there's so many things you can do. Not a lot of slots back here. And if you're fighting with your team, I say start by fighting here and go around this way. And so, we have to start kiting a bit. Our Ironbreaker has to back up. Our backliner's like back here. And so the front line starts going here. The back line is diagonal to them. And then once you get to about here, you should realize your backliner's in danger. You're no longer, as a frontliner, able to intercept the enemies for them. They're going to start going towards them. That's when your team heads this way. So your backliner heads there, your frontliners head here, and then you just jump right here, hold block a bit, fight, and then you just fucking leave. You just leave. Everything's behind you at this point. Everything's entered if you played this slow enough. If there's another wave coming while you're doing that, then stall. Like, if you're coming over here and you see another wave, then just hold block. Be like, yo, we gotta wait. And then as that wave shows up, jump up. You can actually, I think you can walk up. No, you can't, but just jump and then go all the way around, and fucking every single enemy is behind you. Every single fucking enemy on the map is behind you, and then you can just, like, stand here and kill them. And same principles apply here. You can always get around the enemies, hold here, jump around them eventually, leave as a team. Ironbreaker can go last with the Troll Hammer. Same thing here, just get around every enemy. So, holding back there, and then once you're in this area, the default spot, I would say, is kind of just right here in the open, because if it's a single wave, just run into the wave, right? If it's a single wave, just run straight into it, and then do the same thing for the next wave. If it's a double wave, well then your team should back up into a wall, kite around like I said, or come back here. If you get a Skaven ambush... Actually, I didn't verify if... I don't think enemies drop on you from there. If they do, and I'm griefing you... I guess you'll have to test this yourself, but I can say two things. For Skaven ambushes, holding here should be pretty good. I don't think they drop on you. You can just, like, hold as a team here, and then once everything spawns, and you don't want to be here anymore, just drop off and fight them. If that doesn't work, then you're going to have to play back here and kind of do what I said. Fight, kite around, eventually get them on one side, or do the same thing on the ramp. But I'm pretty sure that spot works pretty well for ambushes. This area, again, pretty bad. Nothing wrong with just dropping. Oh yeah, there's two. How do I want to talk about this? I'll talk about the up top first, and then down below. So for here, you ever get overwhelmed, like I said, you always have the choice of saying, let's make them drop down. We drop, we kill them on the drop down. Say you want to stay up here. It's the same thing I said earlier on the bridge. You run into the first wave you see. If the waves show up at the same time, drop or hold block and get them in one direction. Those are your choices. If your team practices and you keep dying, well, then run into the wave faster or drop. Like, that's just how it is. Once you're over here, um, nothing too important as long as your backliner, you know, has vision on this. Something to keep in mind is if your backliner is like focusing here, it's gonna be hard for them to be back here, and so you're gonna need someone else responsible for this shit. Like, you don't. If there's gas rep back there, don't expect your backliner to deal with it because your backliner needs to always have vision on this open area here. For the lower area, I know this is a place people struggle with often. The thing is, I think people just don't realize, like, you can just, like, not get stuck in this area by just jumping. Like, I would say, honestly, just fight in here. Like, fight, like, right here. If you get double waved, run into the first wave, or just hold block, jump around as a team, and then, oh, look at that. 2 waves are right here. We can just kill them all in the same direction. That would be my advice. Other people will, like, fight all the way back there in a corner, basically. The reason why you don't want to fight in the open is these special... Everything I mentioned kind of applies in the open, and you can do it. But the problem is the special sightlines are so bad. Like, specials can just, like, see you, like, around this clipping, and around that clipping. And so, it's just... Doesn't matter what you do, sometimes you just get, like, 3 Blight Sturbers you can't kill. So, if you want to kite around in this area, you can, but I have no advice for dealing with the specials, because... Like, look at my screen. I can't see anything. Like, you can't see anything either. So if there's 3 blights, there's nothing you can do in that area. That's just how it is. Down here, or down that side, if you spawn here and get, like, a wave, I recommend just running it basically in a way that stops you from getting stuck. Like, obviously the enemies will drop down here, so you don't want to hug here. So just, like, pick a direction as your team so you don't get stuck, and hold. Back here for the first wave, if you pulled ambience, I say there's no reason to hold here. This spot, it's really straightforward, right? But the special sightlines are the problem. The special sightlines are a lot better from here, so I recommend, if you pulled ambience, get here. I'm not going to talk about this spot too much, because again, they're straightforward spots, but the special sightlines suck, and so it's just a lot of pressure on your backliner. So I'll mention, just as a frontliner, please just don't back up. If there's specials, for some reason, there's yeah, I do have stuff to talk about. For some reason, there's some frontliners who, like, when they're special, like, when they're specials, their fucking instinct is just, like, back up. It's like your fucking backliner is trying to shoot, and you're just, like, backing up and dragging running attacks into them. What are you doing? If you see a special and you're worried about them, fucking stand still or go into them. Just walk towards them is better than backing up. Because now your backliner can actually shoot and deal with the specials. So that's my advice to people who struggle in this spot. Just stand still, like, turn off your monitor if you see a hook rat or a blight, and just don't press S. Just let your backliner have some room to deal with it, and it'll probably be fine. If you really, really, really struggle in this area, there's nothing wrong with just running around. Like, literally just, like, a path I could give you is, like, around here, here, and then around that side. If you can't make it around that side, this way, and then up. And if you can't go this way because you get stuck, well, then you can always do a U-turn and go around. And so that's, like, your starting path. If you end up U-turning, well, then, like, see the flow sheet, come back this way. Either go this way again, this way, or U-turn again. If you go these directions, well, then you have 2 options. You can go up the ramp all the way back to where you started, or you can go here, around, like you U-turned. And you basically follow that path, and you should never get stuck. So to reiterate that was probably slightly confusing. You have a couple options. assuming you start from here, you can go this way to here, or you can go around to here, or you can go from here to here, and then, oh shit, we have to turn around. And either way, you can always like kind of repeat those options. If you have to loop a little wider the second time because you had to turn around, that's fine. You might have to go all the way around, but either way, you're going to end up in this open area where you have 3 choices, or over here, or back at the start. If you end up here, you just loop all the way around and drop back. Same things apply. Or you can go this way and follow what I told you if you U-turned. And if you really struggle with this area, I would advise doing what I just said, where you just run around. I think it's underrated in this game, just running around. Like that route, just walk it a couple times with your team and just like say which one you're doing. Like you can say like around the hut, go straight, U-turn. And then here you could say around the hut or U-turn or go up the ramp. And like your team knows the whole path at that point. And you just do that as a team. Light stormers won't bother you, gas won't bother you, and you'll be fine. This spot, again, pretty straightforward. The kiting I just mentioned applies. To get back to this spot, do the kite loop I just mentioned, basically. And if you drop, do what I mentioned for that kite loop. That's your plan. If you drop, just any one of the commands I mentioned, go straight, U-turn, go around the hut. Like, that's just the only thing on your mind if you have to drop. If you don't have to drop, well, then you've killed everything, and you can stay here. Not a lot to say besides don't peek if your backliner doesn't have vision. If you're a frontliner, just don't back up, and your backliner will be able to kill the specials. This area is not good to fight in, but this area right here is so good to fight in, especially for chaos. Oh, by the way, you can jump here. If you didn't know. So if you're stuck in this area as a team, like, just like, I would say stand here, and then when everything groups up, just like go here, and like, can you, yeah, I didn't think so, but, you know, you're around most of the things now. You can crouch and get stuck, because apparently, I mean, no, you can't crouch past that. You crouch, I think when enemies are in, yeah, crouching should let you go around enemies. If there's like a storm vermin here and you crouch, you should be able to go by. But if you don't crouch, you might get stuck. So crouching is good. And then down here, same thing applies for chaos. Run into the first wave you see. If both waves show up at the same time, get around them. I recommend not going up top. This spot pulls a lot of really bad special sight lines. So if you get shoved this way, just like go as a team and then loop around to here, decide on the time to drop, and then everything's linearized. In this area, you can hold basically anywhere. Obviously, spots are going to be easier and some are going to be a lot more difficult. This spot's okay. Usually when I hold up here, you have to drop eventually, just because of, like, the special sight lines. So, I want to give you, like, a flow sheet for, like, a kiting path you can do, so no matter where you decide to hold, you can always move around to be safe. The problem is, I don't know if I can give, like, a simple flow sheet in this area, because, like, this direction gets clogged sometimes if a wave. So I'll do it 2 ways. If a wave's like coming from here and this way's blocked, then you should just like drop to here and then slowly kite around and eventually loop back to where you started. If the opposite's true, like this way's open, then just drop here. I don't know why you would have to drop, though, if that way's open. Like, you're just, like, fighting on a drop-down. Yeah, basically, this area, just stay up top as long as you can, and if specials make you drop, get to a wall. Any of these walls work as a team, and decide where you're going. If you're going back this way, back up top, or if you're just staying on the ground, fighting against the wall. I would recommend always trying to get back up here just because of this climb up's really nice. But if you're trying to pace, like if it's the first time you just come to this area, you haven't pulled any ambience, do what I'm saying, where you're like dropping, looping around, and getting back up here. But once you're pulling ambience, obviously, like, you can't fucking walk that far anymore. You're stuck in this area. Once you're in this area, it's different. Again, the drop down applies, like if you want to fight on the drop down or not. I recommend not fucking around with the spot. Like the moment you say we pulled enough ambience, our timing's good for the trigger, whatever a trigger is, you just run this way and you do not stop. You go this way, you go here, you go over here, and you go here, and there's almost certainly going to be an ammo box for your Trollhammer IB. I don't remember if it's guaranteed. I don't remember if they're guaranteed, but this area, it's very open, and there's an ammo box, and so it's like Righteous Stand, you know, just hug corner. Try to hold a corner. If you can't, just start running. Like it's Righteous Stand, just run around. Eventually you'll be back at the ammo box, and everything will die. For like more specific advice than that, this area is very good. Your backliner can stand here, and your frontliners, one here, two there, or like if it's only in one direction. Either way, whichever configuration you're doing, well, nothing should be on your backliner. As long as your backliner's here, and you have frontliners there, your backliner will be safe. Otherwise, just run around. This area, pacing stops when you get into the event, so you can always send someone forward to end pacing. If you're in, like, this area here, and you get a wave, you always have two choices. If there's a bunch of ambience, just start fucking kiting, go all the way back to the ammo box, dump the Trollhammer. Otherwise, if you're not going to do that, you're standing and fighting, try to stand in the open and fight, and then slowly kite back. Or the last option I would recommend is trying to fight against a wall in this area, because this area, just running, is pretty easy. Like, and if you're against a wall, like, there's kind of nowhere to back up. Like, this line of sight is terrible. You don't want to be over here, so that means you're going to go into them. Like, as much as I like pacing, like, you're probably just going to win the game if you back up to the ammo box. But yeah, you can always try to run forward in this area and end pacing, but I don't really recommend it when there's an ammo box, unless you have really good timing to end pacing. This area, I'll say, don't like feel like you've won the game once you got here, because hook rats exist. So if you're gonna hold in this area, you'll see a lot of people hold here. I don't think that's right. I think you actually want to hold here on this side, because it gives you better vision on the specials, and like hook rats have to walk all the way around, and so you can still hit these people on the climb up, and holding here is very safe. For the event, I recommend doing the French way. I don't know if Uganda's group or Ortega's group did this first, doesn't really matter. Basically just stand here. You can jump here from here, and enemies have to climb, so your Ironbreaker and GK stand here, your Waystalker's back here, and should be pretty safe. For the start of the event, the event starts about here, so don't go further than this unless you want to start the event. When the event starts, your whole team should actually go this way, to about here, I would say. The Zealot goes off on their own. Oh cool, I found the event start. Music playing. Your whole team goes to about here. The Zealot runs off. The reason why you want your team here is you want your team to try to pull some of this shit away from the Zealot to make their life easier. Don't use the Ironbreaker taunt, but your Waystalker can shoot a couple things. Maybe your GK can do something. And then these three who aren't doing the event will back up. Why? For fucking event spawns. Oh god, dude, this game. Yeah, and as Zealot, like I said, press F. You can dodge through enemies. You have bops If you die, you get your ammo box back. There's an ammo box. Do not be afraid of just fucking blasting every special you see. Hold down right click, hold down left click. Get them out of the fucking server. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Use all of your ammo if you have to. Um, Not a whole lot else to say. For your timing on the third set, I'll get to that. One thing to consider is if you have a lot of shit on you, like say you're here, I should say it this way, if you're in a spot where you have the choice of going to do the event or running back to your team. If you have a lot of stuff on you and you're being really safe, it's probably a good idea to just go back to your team, kill like a third of it with your team, and then run the fuck away from your team, and so you can kind of get a better timing. Because the way to get like what I call a good timing is you want to help your team with like the first 5 or 6 seconds of the wave you're fighting, and then you want to fucking run. You don't want to leave at the end of the wave. You don't want to leave in the middle of it. You want to leave a couple seconds into the start of it. Make sure your team's stable, and then you'll probably have a good timing. And that's basically the opposite of getting here and having a bunch of shit and then having the thought in your mind, yo, maybe I should go help my team, or should I do the event? Which one is it? Well, you can always go back and then help them for 6 or 7 or 8 seconds, just for a couple, like 6 or 7 seconds during the Ironbreaker taunt. Help your team kill a lot of that stuff. You'll do a lot as Zealot in just a couple seconds, and then run off, and it'll probably be pretty good. These third buboes, basically, when you finish the event, when you clear the third set, a lot of stuff spawns. So the only thing to consider is don't kill the last bubo if your team is in a bad spot. Like if your team's really low health, you know, do you really want to fight a lot of stuff when your team's low health? Do you want to spawn a lot of stuff? Just ask that question. Like, do I want to spawn a lot of stuff right now? Is that a good idea? And it's basically just how much health does our team have? Maybe we want to farm some more potions. I wouldn't say farm potions in this event. But yeah, those are the things on your mind, basically. Like, is your team stable enough to break the bubo? If your team's in pretty good shape, break that last thing without a thought. Run back to them. Fight them as a team in this area. If your team... Oh yeah, I should mention this is a reroute. So your team starts here, fighting. If you get overwhelmed, you jump here, fight a bit, jump here, fight a bit, fight a bit, fight a bit, and then loop around, get stuck down here and die. So just loop around like that. If there's too much stuff though, like you're really, really fucking worried about if you loop down here, you think you might just get stuck, then you're gonna have to go here and just, you know, stay alive. Stay alive long enough for the Zealot to come back with the flail and bail you out. Or whoever the fourth person is. Basically, just very important not to go down to 3. If you have 4 people alive, you should always be able to deal with the event spawns. If you go down to 3, well, you might get overwhelmed. So, if in the worst case scenario, jump back and forth between these spots and just stay alive by holding block, and then fight it as 4 people, rather than trying to like take a risk. Fight out here just a couple seconds longer. You think just a couple seconds longer, we need to kill some more stuff, and then you die and your team loses when you could have just not done that. Waited for everyone to show up, fight it together, and have a much better time. Once you deal with that big wave, basically just stay together until the end is all the advice I can give you. You have an Ironbreaker, you have a Troll Hammer. Run when there's no enemies. Run as fast as you can. The moment you get surrounded, hold block. Slowly fight your way forward along the wall. Eventually, your Zealot can decide when they can run off and just go and end the event. And, yeah. That's Festering Ground. Wow, just an hour on this second set of the recording. That's pretty cool. Either way, any questions, put them in the comments. That's all I have.